Yo, 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 welcome to the Beat 94.5, New York's finest radio. I'm just kidding. This is Bible and Brekkie. The music kind of makes you want to.
It feels like a Saturday Night Live intro.
Oh, yeah, that's true. With the people. I didn't think about that. That
Because
was
of the
probably
city and all that.
the people walking, and then it's like that's true.
Sebastian, I feel like you practiced that a couple times before.
I always wanted to be a locutor. I always wanted to be that, bro. I was like, in Spanish and English, I would just be at the house. I don't want to do it right now because I feel like a fool. But
bienvenido a la Mega
102.5, donde los hits.
What would it sound like if you were doing it for Hope Channel?
90.1 Amor.
Oh, Hope Channel. What would Hope Channel sound like, Gabe?
Hope Channel.
Yeah, man.
I don't even want to try.
Yeah, I don't even know.
We can't fake it that bad, right?
We can't. Yeah. Welcome to Hope Channel, where hope is the channel that we give. No, I'm not saying. That's weird. All right. Well, we just want to welcome you all back. It's been a couple weeks since we've been here. How are y'all doing? Y'all doing all right?
Doing good, man.
Surviving so far.
Surviving these allergies.
Yeah. Can't complain, man. 2 weeks ago, I finally set up a gift that Gabe sent me with that basketball thing.
Yeah.
Bro,
like a hoop, an actual hoop, or a...
It's like a little hoop for your office door.
Oh, okay.
And then it's the toughest thing you've ever played in your life, man.
Is it the Nerf ones?
No, it's like actual like rubber, like they bounce and stuff. It's not like Nerf. It's like
it's not light. It's actually heavy and
yeah. So the legit basketballs, that they use in the NBA to practice and.
Oh wow.
When they're away from the court. Okay, no, just kidding. Yeah, but it's good, man. We had a blast. There was like 4 of us in here. We were cracking up because we suck so bad, but I think it's the actual like hoop and the basketballs that
actually
messed up. It's probably one of those factory things.
Yeah. Anyway. We got sending some complaints to Amazon then.
To Amazon. Yo, I got to check that out, man. Is it big and heavy?
No.
I'm trying to imagine what it is.
Like those ones that you put over the door?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically...
I want to show you, but my computer is on. I'm using it as to like lift my computer up.
No, you're good. You get. No, you have your whole setup set up. Your whole setup. No, you're good. You're good. So I it's like a Nerf, just more like heavy duty, like more intense.
I don't know if you remember, Seb, in the campus ministry office in Andrews. Chaplain Polite had like a little thing there, basketball hoop. I don't know if you remember it.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, he did on the door.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Look at that. Now all the young people are going to be hanging out in Brian's office
the whole time. Hey, Pastor, that's a good. I mean, low-key, that's a good way to do it because they're doing something, and all of a sudden they start. Pastor Brian, I'm trying to run away. I'm like, whoa, what?
Wait, what?
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 Yeah.
Right.
You got
Brian,
a job? You got a car?
You have like
a health insurance?
Brian, if you guys need a tiebreaker for one of your board meetings, that's it. Whoever sinks the first 3 shots is
gonna make board meeting like 8 times longer, bro. How
Brian's
long
like,
it takes
you to the office. We're gonna do 1-on-1
now.
That'd be tight, but that's good. That's a cool thing to do and to have on the side there. But awesome, Gabe, you good too? You playing basketball in your house?
No, not really, man. Just watching a lot of baseball right now.
Let's go Astros.
The Mets started out really well, and then out of nowhere, it was just like
the Mets are in second place right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're there. It's still the beginning of the season. A lot more games to play. So
last time I sat there and watched the Mets play, it was the beginning of the season. Oh my God, raving! We're so good. like 8 games in, and then 2 weeks later, second place. 3 weeks later, third place.
And you're like,
let's not
boom,
talk about anything
for
after that.
For the rest of the season, we were in last place, and I vividly remember Brian telling you not to get your hopes up because these were the New York Mets.
Right.
He was telling me he was like really close to buying a Mets jersey because he was so excited. The Mets were on like a 10-game winning streak, and I told Brian, I was like, bro, look, it's the beginning of the season. There's 162 games.
Bro. Yeah.
Relax a little bit, and lo and behold, the Mets, became the Mets again and started losing. So
that's why I'm wearing 90s hat all the time.
Boston.
Yeah. Boston's doing great this season, surprisingly.
Astros, man. We're going to take it, man. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to. Yeah. But awesome. We'll jump into it. Today we're continuing with our conversation on Philippians 2. I'm glad everyone's doing good. Good to be back. Fun to be back again. And just continue our conversation. So if you're watching from home or wherever, join in. And we'll be
back
reading.
And replay chapter 1.
Or go back and replay chapter 1. I've had a couple people, namely my mom, asking for chapter 2. So ¿Cuándo va a ser el segundo parte? I kind of need these for my sermons too, man. I'm like, hey, I got to do a series on Philippians. We've only done one chapter. So now let's jump into it here. Philippians 2 is on the screen here. And it starts off, we'll read the first 4 verses here. And Paul starts saying, therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of others. And I guess we'll just continue here and see the reasoning why. It says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So there we go. 11 verses right there, speaking on imitating Christ's humility. Paul gives this exhorts his readers in the beginning to what to do, and then he says why you should be doing this, because Jesus himself did this. So any words that stuck out?
Yeah, man, those first couple of verses I think are loaded with a lot of...
They're pregnant with pregnant. I don't know why people use it. It's always so uncomfortable to hear.
I've never heard that phrase before. Yeah, that's so weird.
They say like, I'm pregnant with joy or something. It's like full of...
Yeah, man.
You ever heard it? I'm gonna look. You don't believe me,
yeah. So yeah, those first couple verses kind of give you a neat window into what the church of Philippi was like at the time of Paul's letter. It seems, although this is like the letter that everyone always calls like the letter of joy, right? Paul writes a lot about that joy, and that's a word that comes up even in, I think it's verse 2 or 3 in the text. It seems like the church in Philippi is a lot more normal than people think, and most of the time when we look back at the early church, we have this like maybe false assumption that it was better than what it really was. We kind of romanticize the early church a lot, like let's do exactly what the early church did. Let's be like them. Let's aspire to mold and model ourselves after them. But the reality is, like, these churches were deeply problematic. They had a lot of issues. There was a lot of division. There was a lot of tension and arguing. And part of that is revealed in this text because Paul is urging them to be united, you know? So apparently there's a lot of division in Philippi, and he like repeats he uses language of unity, you know? Was in verse 2, he says, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, and being of one mind. Like, that's all language of unity. And he has to repeat it, you know, a couple of times because, man, I feel like, Philippi must have had a lot of problems. Like, there was, you know, a lot of tension. And maybe that also gives us like a good word about problems in the church, that just because you're saved and just because, you know, you're a churchgoer doesn't mean that you're going to be immune to problems and, you know, having hardship and challenges, even amongst the community in Christ. Right. So I love this idea that, number one, we do see that these are normal, you know, human, normal individuals. They're going through problems. And then number two, that there is a way, in fact, to get through the hardship.
To get through it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And surprisingly, it's one of humility. Like there's a road to unity, and that's through denying yourself and basically living for others.
I like that.
Yeah, I think, like, as the chapter opens, it's kind of straightforward what the issue is, and I feel like the issue for them is like, you know, you say you have love, and you say you're a tender people, you say you have compassion, much like many churches today. We say we have community, but we don't really know
what that
people like, we don't really know what the heck community really is, because we're not authentic with ourselves. We're not transparent. We don't put ourselves out there and are vulnerable with each other. And so much like the Christian church today that professes to have community, I think these people are professing to have compassion and tenderness and love and sharing in the spirit. And Paul kind of challenges this. He's like, listen, if you really have any of these, you know, if you have any of these, then at the end of the day, humble yourself. Because it seems like the main issue, at least from these first verses, is there's this lack of unity, like Gabe was saying, but it stems from this competition of saying, I'm holy, I know how to give love, I know how to give compassion. Oh, I'm one with the Spirit. And you see that when he's saying, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. And it seems like a lot of their Christian actions were being fueled by their selfish ambition and their conceit. And so he says, rather, from all that, just do things, be humble, value others above yourself. Like, don't do this for yourself, for you to find value. Do this because you value others.
Yeah. Really good observation.
That's good, bro.
Yeah. We see, like, these divisions, right? It's all stemming from the impulse that apparently they have to be first, right? In all their interactions. You know, and I think of so many different ways where I'm like that, right? Like, where I'm selfish, where I think of myself before everyone else in the room. We walk into a room, I'm thinking of, you know, like different times where I'm going into a room and, you know, we have to sit down for a meeting or something, and immediately I'm thinking, okay, where am I going to sit? Like, where's my space here? You know, like,
okay,
but maybe Jesus is, you know, like trying to wire us to think of like, get a seat for somebody else, maybe,
That's good. I like that. I think that's powerful, man. This is one of my favorite verses right there, verses 3 and 4. But before that, I do like what you were saying in the beginning. And Gabe, just I don't have the one accord in my Bible here, but in your translation it had that, and kind of reminiscent of how the early church, as you were saying, we do romanticize it a lot, but we do talk about how they they came to a point where they shared everything in common, right? And it was just like always looking to the interest of others, and so it's I find it fascinating that Paul opens up and he's like, yo, if there's anything, he's like, if he gives a whole lot of reasons, like, to try to, if you found any encouragement, if there's any comfort from God's love, if there's any common sharing in the Spirit, if you find any, just there has to be some reason that should motivate you to live this way, right? And then if that's not enough, he then goes into this little sermonette about Jesus and how he left everything behind. But I do like this, and I think it reminds me of kind of how we were talking in Romans a couple months ago, of just this idea of and it's really spoken to me ever since that to this time, right? Where a lot of our decisions that we make, we do it because of what would interest ourselves, right? When we think about how we vote, in politics, or things that we do around the house, or decisions we make and choices we take, I think it's important, obviously, to take care of yourself and all that. But Paul is making this kind of paradigm shift of just saying, hey, nothing that you should do should only be done with the view of you in mind. You have to be thinking of others, and
Right.
and even that powerful line, right? Don't just look to your own interest and whatever that is, right? Whether you're voting, whether you're working, when you're buying stuff, whatever it is, but also look to the interest of others and what could benefit the group rather than just you, the individual.
Yeah,
I think that's a powerful way of thinking, especially in a time where I think we suffer from a lot of like dehumanization of others and the other, right? Whether that be in political parties, or looking at immigrants differently, or people across the border, or genders, or
how we do our finances.
right.
Yeah.
So we tend to not see the other people as deserving the same amount of maybe space and time as we'd have. And here Paul is saying, hey, Jesus literally, as we'll go into that section, became you, and he was God, right? He emptied himself of his advantages and privileges to be able to best serve and live for us. And so I think it's a call to just action for us, that I think many times we think we're fooling ourselves and thinking that we're doing really well, but Paul is even taking it deeper and saying, hey, look, in this joy that you've received, in this love, in this hope, in this good news, it's not just about, oh, okay, cool, I got it. It's about, no, this should cause you and lead you to live differently. And if you're not living differently, then you're not really walking and imitating Christ's humility.
I love how Paul sets this whole thing up. Like, he's so slick, man. Like,
yeah, he is.
he in the first chapter of Philippians, like, he's like really, building them up, like praising them, like, yo, guys, like, wow, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing great. You're making me so happy. You sent people here to me while, I've been in prison and chains. Like, he's really making them feel like they should be proud of the ministry that they're doing. And then he hits them there and at the beginning of this chapter in verse 2, make my joy complete. Like, he knows that they essentially would do a lot for Paul. Like, and he's using that. They really love Paul, and if he tells them to do something, most likely they're going to follow through. So he's using that to his advantage, and to, for them as well, for their advantage. Make my joy complete by squashing this attitude of selfishness amongst you all. Do away with that and follow the model of Christ.
I love it.
I also like the comparison that he makes, right? Because he's looking at their like finite, earthly, just very minimal problem, and it's like, oh wow, you had to sacrifice this and that. You think that makes you, a really good Christian or a really good Christ follower. But look at the cosmic level to which Jesus gave up, for you, and humbled himself for you. and look how highly he was exalted,
Nothing compared.
And I think that sometimes we're prone to, keep tabs on what it is that we do for people and how often. And all right, once you reach that threshold of like, I'm gonna stop helping you out, man, because like we quickly turn to language of like, okay, you're taking advantage, right? And though, be safe about it, obviously, like don't get taken advantage of. But I do feel like what Jesus does is sort of taking advantage, of him, of who Jesus is. And I think that we have zero problem taking advantage of other people unless we're taken advantage of, and that's when we start changing the language, favor versus, taking advantage. Right. And I do love the fact that Paul like changes their mindset. He changes it from like, okay, these are your little problems, and look at this cosmic problem that had to be solved. So you can't be proud of the little tiny thing that you do. You can be happy with it for sure, but it's nothing in comparison to what Jesus has done. And so therefore, like, be glad and keep doing, because one, there's no threshold. You're never going to amount, no matter how much you do, it's never going to amount to what Jesus did. Right. So just keep being humble, keep serving, keep doing it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I like that, right? And in your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So it's interesting because he could have easily say, hey, live like I live, very selfless. And, I'm literally in chains, in prison because of the gospel. And here I am. I'd rather die. But if it means that, if living means I can help you guys out, then so be it. I mean, he's being very selfless as it is, but he's like, it's not about me. It's about focusing on Jesus. And even makes the point so beautiful, right? Of just, I mean, what gets me always that verse 6 right there, who being the very nature God did not consider equality with God something to be used for his own advantage or for his own privilege or whatever. And so he really like emptied himself completely, all his godness. He was like, I understand that this privilege that I have, this advantage of being God, does not correspond with being a human. So I'm just going to empty that and really get to the level of humans to be able to be a human and, be the, found as a servant in human likeness, and to then be led to die on a cross, which is just powerful, right? That God would empty himself as so many advantages when we live in a time and place where we want to just, how many advantages and privileges can I get? Right. And then if we get called out on it, we're like, well, and here God is emptying himself of that to better help others when we don't really enjoy doing that at all. Right.
Yeah. And I think when you look at that example, that Paul gives of Jesus and compare it to what is actually happening in, the church of Philippi, you see the comparison, the inadequacy of the human reality versus what, Jesus did. Verse 3 kind of, tells, my version says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition. And I think of that, like, what's selfish ambition? Like, what's a good example of that? I think of, election time, nominating committee comes, in church. And, there's people that are positioning and have been positioning themselves
the whole year,
throughout the whole year, so that they can become, an influential person in the church and leadership position, like first elder, like, oh, I want to be this position, right? I want to be the head deacon because it's my turn. And you kind of see this play out throughout, local level, local church level, conference level, union, division, and so on and so forth, where people are literally campaigning because they want a position. And it makes you think, like, all those acts of service that are done throughout the campaign season, are they real? Are they genuine? Or is this just some part of an agenda for us to exalt ourselves, right? Like, for us to get up to the next level. And so that's what I think of selfish ambition, where things are being done specifically to fulfill an agenda that favors me, that is in my own advantage.
Wow.
But when you look at Jesus's example, like, he is the most exalted because he's God, right? He's God himself, and he's already exalted. His agenda isn't looking for exaltation. In fact, he does the exact opposite. Like, instead of being exalted, everything he does is to become a servant, to take the lowliest form, to get the lowest pay, to get the the lowest job, to do the dirtiest work. That's what he looks for.
That's good. That's good. I like that, man. That's powerful, because that's so true. Many times we fool ourselves in doing good things, but because we want to gain an advantage in some way. And here Jesus is doing good. I mean, doing good things for others, but even at the expense of his own life, right?
Right.
And his own, and losing of his own advantage. And so it's a total paradigm shift of saying, hey, in doing good to others and looking to the interests of others, you may lose your life. And in that sense, that Jesus says that's an advantage to you, because he who loses his life, what does the verse finish saying? We'll find it later. I don't know, something like that.
But it's like that everywhere, though. Like even in whenever it is that you get your first job, up to like you get into the career that you've always wanted. The phrase, it's a dog eat dog world. That's just the way I feel like it's always been. And not just, going back to high school, like I remember, listen, man, I've always been horrible at science. Like all the biology and all that stuff. Like I suck at science and remembering all those different things. And those were the teachers that I would try to get close to do favors for, to sweet talk, to, because I knew that at the end of the day, if I behaved myself at a higher standard than my peers, they would be, or I would hope there would be, some kind of mercy when my name came up on like a test or an assignment, or I didn't show up for something. And so the truth is that it's always paid off.
So that worked well, Brian?
That did work really well, yes.
I finished my master's already, so yeah.
And obviously I'm not like bragging like, oh, you can do it. You can do it too. You can, but I'm saying, essentially what I'm saying is, like, at the end of the day, I didn't learn anything.
Wow.
I don't remember learning anything from at least my high school science classes. I remember having to learn in Puerto Rico because that biology teacher didn't take any stuff, right? And so kind of had to learn there. But honestly, I think what Paul is saying here is so crucial even to the way that we live our lives today, because it's just so fundamentally different, than how we think we ought to live. And so many times we look and we compare to what other people have, what other people are experiencing, and we want the same. The truth is like, you have something, you're always going to want more. You're always going to want more. And I think at the end of the day, Paul is trying to portray this message of like, dude, you guys already have it all in Jesus. And so I know that sounds corny as heck, but that's the truth that is coming across. And if you just go and you labor and you do what you have to do, to put food on the table, but aside from that, you're just serving, not out of like some kind of ambition or go higher to get promoted or whatever. You're going to live such a more wholesome and happier life than if you were constantly thinking about the next thing that you need to get, or the next place you need to be, or the next promotion that might be available that you need to, in Argentina, you say, chupar medias, right? To suck up to, because it's disgusting, right? Like sucking on a used stock, like, ugh. The next person you need to suck up to get to that position. And so I feel like Paul is kind of giving them the secret of like an authentic kind of feeling of like satisfaction.
Yeah.
Not the definition of success that we have like in this world, but satisfaction as it comes from knowing that you have everything that matters.
Yeah.
And being able to experience the moments in which you're in without having to think about like, okay, what do I have to do next so I can, be at the top or do or become what I want to become.
Dude, I like that, man. It reminds me as you were talking, Brian, of seculosity. I know you guys read it a while back now, but we're going through it with my youth group, and that part, that's obviously going through different things that we, I guess, attribute our value and worth to, whether that be work, technology, family, parenting, and just that idea, right, where most of the time that we do things, as you're saying, right, it's either to get a better grade, it's either to, as Gabe was saying, to get a position on the board of some sort, or just to be validated by people. But when you already realize, kind of from this angle, that, as he says, right, you've already received encouragement from being united with Christ. You've already been comforted by his love. You have his spirit. You have received his tenderness and compassion. Like, you already are validated by God. You don't have to seek validation by what you do. Then that changes how you view your actions, I think. And then it allows you to serve selflessly and to really give yourself to the extent of not even finding advantages at some points when you're serving others, right? Okay, this really didn't advantage me in any way when I gave all this money away. I lost some, but I'm benefiting them and this mission project or whatever it is. And so it's really focusing on others, because you've realized that God has already focused on you, and you have it all when you have Jesus, right? Which, like you said, it sounds kind of corny, right? Jesus is the answer. When you have Jesus, you have everything. But it's the reality of it. And then when you start from that point, you can then follow along in the life of Jesus, and saying, how can I interest others even when that brings no interest to myself, and how do I serve and focus on others without having that selfish desire at the bottom, which is to, how can I turn this so I can get an advantage, right? I mean, we do that sometimes with taxes too, right? We give money to nonprofits or to Christian charitable deeds, so that we can put that on our tax returns, right? As and right. So, which, I mean, hey,
it didn't help much this year, but
it didn't help. It didn't help, but I think, awesome, do that, but if we're only doing it because we want to not have to pay taxes, then something's not right, rather than having to benefit and bless those that are receiving it. So I like that. That's good. All right. So continuing in the verses here. Oh, let me put that up. It says, Paul continues. And so he says, therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. And so do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. And then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me. So you too. I hear you, Gabe. You said you gave the
that part, what verse is that?
Is it 13? For this God who works in you to
Yes. Verse 13. For it's God who works in you the will and what?
Whoa.
Oh,
there you go.
For it is God who works in you both to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. So I imagine as they're reading this letter and these words out loud, they're thinking like, yo, man, how do we develop this, a spirit of humility? How do I begin to look at my neighbor and think of their concerns, their needs, their plight, their suffering before my own? And some might start to imagine and to, to think like there's a lot of work to do. They got to start scrambling to start putting in like this extreme effort. And Paul says, like, listen, wait, hold on. I just want to let you know that this isn't a faith that's based off of works, like the things that
that's good.
Like,
that's good.
it's God who instills in you this motivation, like this impulse. Like, he rewires you,
the desire,
so that you have that will to do good, and he empowers you to fulfill it. So all of that comes from God. It's not something that's just naturally born within you. So that's why I love that verse.
That's powerful. Because many times you get the verse before, right, which says continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Many times people will stop there and be like, yeah, you see, you got to work hard, you got to keep doing it, you know, with fear and trembling. So you got to be fearful, tremble, because your salvation is at your hands and it's your work. And if you're not selflessly loving others and serving, then it's in conjunction with that part where he's like, hey, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God, right? The reason you're doing, you know, this is because it's God who works in you to will, literally to desire, like you were saying, right? To have the desire, to want to do good, and then to actually do it in order to fulfill his good purpose, right? So if you find yourself in a position feeling that you can't selflessly serve others or seek the best interest of others, then the key is not trying to work harder and you know, try harder or be in fear or trembling, but the key is really turning to God and asking God to really fill you with the desire to do it, and then the ability to do it and the power to do that. And I think it's beautiful that God's going to supply that and bring that same spirit, right? The same mindset that Jesus had, be able to apply it to us. So powerful. And so even do everything without grumbling or arguing, it says.
And I just want to mention that.
Yeah, go
ahead. So Paul kind of like gives two commands throughout this, you know, this pericope or this chapter, where he says do, right? So it's verse 3 where he says do nothing, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Selfish ambition or conceit. So that's a negative command, do nothing. But now, was this verse 14? He says
do everything.
Do everything.
Hey, okay. Scholar.
Do everything. Yeah. So I love that contrast where do nothing out of selfish conceit and ambition, but do everything without complaining, without fighting, without grumbling.
Hey, that's good.
So it kind of like makes you wonder how many people would complain about, like, damn, yo, I gotta go do this. I remember when we went we studied in Antillean. Brian and myself, we went to Antillean in Puerto Rico, and one of the things that we would do often in the university were these service projects that would take place in the like the hood, like the really ghetto part of Puerto Rico, the government housing projects in Mayagüez. What they call them in Puerto Rico, they call them caseríos or residenciales.
Yeah.
And so we were in this one particular caserío. We were doing a health fair there. But unbeknownst to most of the theology students who signed up for this, because, you know, we were going to get extra credit for our classes, there were some individuals who were unable to get out of their apartment and go to the town square where the health fair was. So we had to go to them, and we had to provide the services to them in their apartment. And part of that service was to help clean their apartment. So one of these apartments that we walked into was like, you know, miraculously, the guy was like, he was bedridden. He wasn't coming to the door. Somehow, some way, we got into the apartment. We found out he was a diabetic and he needed to be rushed to the emergency room right away. Like, that was a great part of the story. But the main part of the story is this: when we walked into the apartment, I mean, this was a disaster. Like, it was the dirtiest place I've ever seen. This guy had roaches everywhere in his apartment, man. And if you've never been to the Caribbean before, then I'm sorry, but the roaches there are quite different than the roaches, you know, up here in New Jersey, New York. First of all, they're like way bigger, and
they're like this big, right?
Yes. Yes, and the scary part is that they fly, man. These suckers fly. So I had never had that experience, man. We were with broomsticks and with mops and with buckets and sponges, like with face masks on. Like it was not even COVID, but we had masks on. And we were cleaning that guy's apartment, hosing it down. It was a disaster, an absolute disaster. That we opened up his refrigerator. He had dead mice inside his freezer. Like, bro, we were complaining the entire time. Like the whole time, a few of us were in that apartment, very small, tight space. So the whole time we were complaining. we were in one spirit, together. Like, damn, we got to do this.
Complaining.
This is horrible. But I imagine like that's perhaps like the attitude that Paul is talking about. You know, like where you're doing something good, but you're complaining about it.
Yeah,
you know, like and God wants you to like give, right? We think about that giving, but like being a joyful giver. Right. And we think that only applies just to tithe and offering.
Right.
But what if God is trying to instill in us also like being a joyful giver when we're giving of ourselves,
That's
right?
Good.
When we're giving our service to others. And so maybe Paul is trying to address that. Look, you're going to give, and this is going to be hard, right? To give of yourself and to serve others and to put others first. So when you stop doing everything out of selfish ambition and conceit, do everything without complaining.
That's good. That's good, bro. Yeah. I like that, man. That's powerful because, and it's so true. I think about, we're all pastors. And so sometimes when I'm planning, especially pre-COVID, but even now moving forward, you think of, you do events. And so if I planned a park day where everyone shows up at the park just to play kickball or whatever, versus a community service day where we had to show up, right, and get dirty, the attendance would vary, right? And you would probably know which people, some people just love to give and to serve. But a lot of times it's easier for people to come in and to promote and people to buy into, like, oh, we're going to go have fun together. We're all going to have a barbecue and this is going to be for us. And but when it's involves, because you were saying, right, kind of getting down and dirty with other people, we're just like, and then it's one thing to go and it's another thing then to be there without grumbling and arguing. As you were saying, most of the time when we do that, we're just kind of like, oh, why are we here? It's so hot. I'm in Florida. It's muggy and sweaty. And, so it's definitely, Paul is definitely calling them to a deeper walk with God that thankfully, as we saw earlier, God provides that desire and that ability to do it and the strength to do it. But I think it is many times where this church probably was fooling themselves and thinking that they were doing well. They had accepted the message. We're good. And he's like, nah, y'all have to take it. It has to literally change how you live and how you interact with others. And you guys are arguing a whole lot and, not making an impact in your community. So you got to stop doing that.
I think a big part of it, and Paul is one of the main guys that talks about this, is like the prize at the end, right? And so when it comes to service, we're like, dang, unless you're being seen or you have to report it back to someone where you get something in return, it's kind of hard for you to be involved in it, like, joyfully.
That's true.
And Paul always talks about this prize at the end, and that's what many of us, when we preach about Paul, we focus on how he says the prize at the end, but we tend to overlook the fact, like, constantly throughout his different letters, he's writing to them as though they've already attained what's promised at the end, right? This like sonship and like children of God and all this stuff. And so like it reminds me of whenever my parents would want me to do something or to do it right, at least this is what my mom says. I don't know how true this is, because mothers love their children. So so the way that it typically works is like, okay, you get an A, okay, here's a something. Cookie. Yeah. Oh. Here's a something, right? To be like, okay, good job. Apparently I work backwards from that typical thing where it's like, no, I need the prize first, and once I get the prize, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the work.
Yeah.
Apparently that's how it worked when I was little. I don't know if that's still a thing. So if that's still a thing, you want me to do a better job, give me a raise first, and then
And then I'll give you a deposit. Yeah.
Shout out Florida Conference.
Shout out Florida Conference.
No, I'm messing around, but yeah, I think that Paul does that. He gives them like, yo, you already got the prize, but at the same time, like looking forward to like physically experiencing that prize.
Yeah.
And I think that here, when he's talking about, do everything without grumbling, the first thing that I thought about was these like bunch of like thousands of people leaving Egypt, right? When Moses goes and God uses him to deliver, all these slaves, and they're there eating the manna, and they're like complaining and like, oh, I wish we had like other food. I wish we had meat. I wish we had this and that. And in Egypt we could do this. And it's like, and yet you're sticking another piece of manna in your mouth, So it's like that kid that complains. I was just watching an episode of Modern Family, and I don't know. Oh, Manny, right? The little, the chubby one, right? He's there complaining about his mom, that she's doing everything wrong now that she's pregnant, and that, she burned my toast. And then his stepdad looks over at him, and yet you ate the other one, right? So it's just like, bro, many times we complain about things that aren't even bad. And I think part of what he's trying to allude to here is like, do everything without grumbling, because most of the things that you're doing aren't even bad. As he stated in the first chapter, you're doing all these good things. Why are you complaining about it?
Yeah.
You're doing great things. Like, why are you complaining about things that are good? But if it's not about us, we tend to complain about it.
It's true. It's true. We always find things to complain about something, but I like that. So now we know if we want you to do something, we got to give you the prize before. So either donuts or whatever. I think it's not donuts, but awesome. Right. And so,
Donuts work.
Donuts work too. So closing up, this is kind of Paul's closing statements here. Not closing statements, but kind of the end here. I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who will show genuine concern for your welfare. For everyone who looks out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ, right? So here, even Paul is putting himself around people that kind of have the same mindset. For everyone looks out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. But you know that Timothy has proved himself, because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. I was pretty cool. I had never caught that. It's been interesting that father and son kind of teaming up with Paul and going around. I hope therefore to send him as soon as I see how things go with me, and I'm confident in the Lord, in the Lord, that I myself will come soon. But I think it is necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because you heard he was ill. This is funny. Indeed, he was ill and almost died. But God, you're like, oh no. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety.
That guy was giving Paul anxiety.
That's so funny. It's still good. So then, welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honor people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give me. Paul was a funny guy, man. Funny guy. I love that part though. Yeah, he was ill and almost died.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it though, because
I don't want to scare you more, because you guys are already scaring me.
I can't use up all my ink on talking about his illness.
I know.
That's
funny, man. That's funny.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like that, the help that they do send ends up being more trouble for Paul than actual help. Yeah.
It's
that's funny.
It's funny. It's funny, man. But it's also cool that Paul has the ability to, distribute responsibility. Like, you could tell this guy is speaking to the church in Philippi from the heart about, doing deeds of service and, being humble. Because if it's somebody who's a narcissist and someone who's looking for the spotlight, they're going back themselves. Like, it's them that's going to show up.
Right. He wouldn't be. Yeah. So
Yeah. They want everyone to know that, it was me, that I did this, that they're the patron of that particular community. So Paul is speaking from the heart because he's willing to let others go. And, it's going to, when people think of like the service that was done, they're going to think of Timothy. They're going to think of Epaphroditus, right? If there's like some kind of report that's going to be sent to the conference office, like it's Epaphroditus and Timothy that are going to be in all the pictures and all the videos.
Right.
Their names are going to be all over the report. It's not going to be Paul, essentially. But that just confirms that he's living the example.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
I love that he like tells them to honor this guy, even though it legit looks like he did nothing. Honor this guy,
but almost die
because he was willing, right, to put his life at risk simply to give Paul the aid that they all wanted to give him. But apparently this guy, I don't know if he had spare time or I don't know. He's like, oh, let's just send him to Paul, or maybe he was making everybody in that, in Philippi anxious. So they're like, yo, let's send this anxiety to Paul because
he's a pain in the butt.
No, but I think that in verse 19 and 20, Paul puts his money, where his mouth is, right? And he says, I hope to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who will show genuine concern for your welfare. And it's like, I'm literally sending you the best that I possibly have. Could he be of more use to me here? Yeah, probably. Most likely. Yeah, right. For sure. Could he do more for the gospel here? Yeah, most likely. But just like I want you to give the best of you to others, I'm giving the best that I have to you. And so he's sending Timothy over there, and he's putting, he's doing the action that he's preaching about. So I think that it's like a further proof, like in sending Timothy, it's like another bullet point to his argument.
Yeah, that's such a great observation, Brian, because
that's good.
When we look at modern church, right, like what we do now, often just thinking about like, church plants and how some conferences go about them, like the first impulse is like, a church that wants to plant another church in the town. It's like, all right, they're gonna take like 10 or 15 members from this church and put them over there. And often it's like the problematic people that get
right.
The ones that are annoying, but like it's the reversal here. It's like Paul is sending like the most emotionally and spiritually mature person, like dedicated and devoted to the gospel work. He's sending him. Like he's not refusing to let that go. So I think that's a pretty
young too. He's
he's young.
Like, he sent Timothy's dad.
He's young. He's dynamic. He has
right.
and
he gets it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah, because he's definitely applying it, right? For everyone looks out for the no interest, but not those of Jesus Christ. And this guy gets it, right? Exactly what I'm telling you and preaching to. I'm sending a guy that gets it, and he's gonna model it to you. So, but I love. I mean, yeah, it's just funny. I mean, it'd be interesting to meet Paul and kind of see his personality, because he was very upfront, right? I wonder how he was in person, if he was the same upfrontness. It looks like he was, whatever he was doing, it was bold and get out of my way, when he was persecuting Christians. So then when he came into the church, and now he's just, hey, I'm not afraid. I'm gonna sweet talk you in the beginning. Hey, you guys are doing great. Thanks for being my joy. Nah, y'all stop arguing, stop you're grumbling, you're literally annoying, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think he was definitely intimidating, and not just because of his like background, you know, history of like, you don't do it my way, I'm gonna kill you, but he seems just like an intimidating character because of, you know, his knowledge and what he brought to the table. I feel like he probably had like a presence about him that was just like, oh snap, Paul just showed up, you know. And
that's true.
Oh snap, Paul just sent a letter.
Yeah, for real, exactly. So I forgot where I was going with this, but
no, that's true though.
Essentially what I want to say is that, man, you also see how far he was from like the Council of Jerusalem and stuff like that, like the first like church leadership people, and how they weren't too fond of him to begin with, you know. And he was from this idea of like, listen, I asked for, you know, letters from the priest when, you know, I went to persecute people. They gave me the letters and I went to do about my business.
Right.
And I'm used to commanding. Boom, do it. Let's get it done. Let's keep going. And I think that even from when the church was first formed, people were not used to that kind of ministry of like going, doing, boom, let's establish this, let's keep growing. It was more like, oh no, we're growing too fast. Let's try to
bring
like
it back to the committee. We got to vote. We got to come.
Exactly. And it seems like the one guy who, you know, God himself called to occupy that like 12th disciple, which, you know, the other dudes were like, oh, let's just cast some lots and see what happens. You know, he called Paul because he knew that the church would need that. I think that even today in church movements in most places, the guy who is a doer, who is a visionary, who wants to keep going, is constantly being shot down. And it sucks. It sucks. So nothing, just thought about that as you were reading.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Paul was just a go-getter, man. He was sold out for the ministry, for the mission, and nothing else, not church or church leaders,
it, man. You know, because he knew it all. He gives like his whole like background of like, oh, you know, if you consider yourself a son of Abraham, listen, I'm
look at my pedigree.
Right. And I don't know, dude. It's just like, yo, just do it, man. You know it, cool. But if you're not doing it, then what the heck is the point?
Yeah, just work for him. And this guy was in prison writing a letter to these guys. So,
yeah,
man, that's crazy. That's great. Philippians 2 was powerful. All right, we're going to go into our final lightning round here at the end of this. And we're going to do a couple questions here. Did you guys, I'm assuming it's been a while, but we didn't talk about it. Falcon and Winter Soldier finale. Any thoughts on it? It was good.
It was good. Yeah,
I felt like it left me wanting more though at the end of it. Like I thought I was gonna. And I guess that's the point, right? To do maybe lead up to a movie or something.
I think our standards were pretty high after WandaVision. But it was a very different show. It had a different intention as well. But yeah, I was left wanting more also. But I was super happy that you know, Sam Wilson is the new Captain America, man.
Me too. Yeah. I did appreciate that Marvel's tackling some deeper thoughts or conversations, right? So like with WandaVision, you know, depression, grief, dealing with loss, and then here you had a lot of, you know, racist undertones and conversations. Whether you know, even his speech at the end, right? You know, and talking and talking with the other one of the first serum soldiers. So powerful.
Yeah. And it was pretty cool because it kind of like there was two very deep and important issues that were addressed by the show, especially in the finale. Number one, the legacy of white supremacy and racism. And then number two, immigration and
that's true. They did tackle that too.
I guess refugees. Like, what do we do? And
what do we do? Yeah, how do we view them too?
So I really loved how both of those went together, and like Marvel addressed them at the same exact time with that finale, because historically that's what we saw through the civil rights movement,
right?
In the pursuit of the rights of Black and brown people here in America. The Immigration Act was passed during the civil rights movement.
A lot of other things were.
A lot of that came together.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
I think that's the difference too between WandaVision and this, is because WandaVision, like, they had to give it closure because it was a whole like show about, you know, mending yourself like mentally after a loss and things like that. So this show is more like, hey, there's gonna be more. You know, it's like this isn't the end of like Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
There's gonna be more. So there, it seemed like it was like the end of her grief. You know, now she's moving on to other things.
Yeah.
So I think that like that's a fundamental difference. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier leaves you like saying like, oh man, I wish there was another episode.
Right.
But like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And there will be.
Yeah, like you said, that's probably the point that there will be. I did. I thought it was very appropriate for them to tackle those themes, though, especially, you know, passing what happened in 2020, right? So it really lined up well, talking about loss and grief and all that everyone went through, and then addressing these issues of immigration and injustices and everything.
Marvel, man.
Powerful. I was like, Marvel, okay.
I think the speech scene when I don't know if you. Whatever, you should have seen it by now. The speech scene when they free the guys out of like that van or whatever was kind of forced. I would have liked for there to be like a speech like that in a more like a different environment, I guess. I don't know. It's like, who was there to really hear it? You know, it was like, I don't know.
Yeah, stop. We'll have to write them in and tell them our thoughts, but. Moving on, Champions League winner prediction. First things first, I was talking to a friend that's a Madrid fan, Real Madrid, and they just always seem to get the easy path, and they either make it to the finals or make it, you know, a game or two before. And I'm like, Barca just gets the shorter end of the stick and just whatever. But my pick is Man City. I think watching them the last two games, especially this last game versus PSG, I was like, man, this defense. Obviously, they were missing Mbappe and his speed, I guess, but they were just laser focused.
Mbappe didn't do anything the first game. Anyway.
Yeah, he didn't do much. Yeah. I forgot he was hurt. I didn't realize he was hurt. But
I think they lost that matchup in the first game. It was just
after that. Yeah, after that.
Yeah, and look at Man City's bench, bro. Like.
Bro, I know when you bring Sterling and Agüero,
the next guy that comes in is a starter in any other team anyway.
Yeah.
You got Jesus, Agüero,
Sterling.
Sterling, exactly. So it's like all these all-star like players.
Yeah, they have a deep bench.
Those three are literally strikers, starting strikers in any other team. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I think they were playing different formation, but I mean, Foden. Amazing game. I mean, that dude Ruben Diaz también. I mean, they had an amazing game, and I think Neymar was either trying to force it too much. He was trying to find some fouls to get like a free kick or something. But
look, I'm gonna be honest, man. I thought going into the semifinal, PSG had a really good chance of making the finals and winning it all. In fact, I said it before that this was the team that I thought was gonna win it all because I didn't really see any other team matching them in speed, in
just the confidence,
in tactically. I thought, you know, and I continue to think that he's a great coach on the PSG side, Pochettino. But man, as soon they ran into a wall, Man City just.
I think what was it? They didn't attempt a shot since like in that second game, since like the first game, the end of the first game or something. Like it was just.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I think what happens a lot of times is that the first game people aren't prepared to go against like a fast Mbappe or like a good night, right, for Neymar or something like that, and. something's about to happen. And I think like that was Barcelona's downfall as well. It's like their first game, they did not play well whatsoever.
No,
in the second game, it was like,
They
wow,
played a lot better.
This is more of a team.
They just couldn't score. Yeah.
And I think it's because the players finally got to know, like, okay, this is who we're playing against. And Mbappe didn't do anything the second game.
No, he got shut down.
And he got shut down. And so I think like
by a defense that was depleted too.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of like PSG's go-to is like surprise. We're actually not that bad, and that's what catches teams,
by surprise.
And they get a good amount of goals from that. I want to say Man City is going to win it. I want Man City to win it. Nothing against what's the other team that made it? I don't remember.
Chelsea.
Yeah, I don't want Chelsea to take it. I want Man City to take it. Congrats to the Chelsea manager for making it to a final.
Yeah.
Because he got sacked from PSG for no reason. And now he made it to the final with a different team. It's like, it's not my fault, bro.
Yeah. It's like this comes to show. Was it Tuchel, right? Tuchel, something like that.
Yeah, some weird name.
French.
But. Yeah, I still want Man City to win it. It's Agüero's last season. Let's see if he gets a couple minutes in there. If Pep is nice to him, allows him to play like maybe the last 5 minutes or something.
Is this his first final in Champions League?
Yeah.
Oh, that might be. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's probably gonna. Yeah. So we don't know where he's going. Agüero might be going to Liverpool. Might be going to Barcelona. Might be going to a bunch of other teams, but no one knows yet.
Yeah.
Bull cow.
Who you got, Gabe? You said so. We got Man City, and
yeah, I said Man City as well.
Yeah, I think Man City too. I don't know if Chelsea can. Awesome. And last one here: vaccinations are underway. Just want to share this. Pretty cool. I just googled it real quick. This is the biggest vaccination campaign in history, and more than 1.23 billion doses have been administered across 174 countries. And that's roughly 19 million doses a day. In the U.S., there's been 252 million doses. Our population is what, 300 million? I guess, yeah. But I mean, it could be for people getting double, an average of 2 million doses per day. So good news, exciting. I think I'm the only one here missing the second dose. I'm getting that in 2 Sundays, not this one, the next one. So excited for that. But
congrats.
Congrats to you guys too.
Vax gang, let's go.
Vax gang.
Yeah, and we can hang out, man.
Without masks.
Maskless. Yeah. That sounds so reckless, though. Maskless.
Yeah, Gabe, you're gonna maskless. Gabe, you're gonna have to come down here, bro.
Yeah,
get Florida's, on a train or something, dude.
And on top of that, Florida has lifted all restrictions, man. So we're good.
You guys are crazy, but
we are good. Just
we're
like
not crazy, or.
Yeah, sorry. I say you guys because you live in Florida, but
Yeah, no,
I love you.
People call me like, "Yo, it's crazy down there. How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm fine," because I'm not one of the crazies. Like, I'm still in a pandemic, living.
I'm locked in my room. I have not left in 20 months.
Yeah, I'm in my bomb shelter.
Yeah,
I might have to go out for more ramen soon, but.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh man, but awesome guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys hopefully next week. We'll see what happens. We're pastors, so it gets crazy and hectic, but we'll see you all later. Have a good weekend.